We all have that one friend that claims he could dunk a basketball when he was younger, but then again, he is 5'5" and like 220. My guy probably couldn't even dunk on my child's Fisher Price basket. Also, could you please stretch before playing? Nobody needs to hear about your hamstring injury for like the 20th time. But anyways, let's get straight into today's video. And it's kind of interesting because over the past couple of weeks, Hasbro has been doing something that I think has caught a lot of us off guard. They've essentially been reissuing or re-releasing a lot of Marvel Legends action figures that were either reselling for a decent amount on the secondary market, or they were just all in all very difficult figures to find. I've already talked about the Kingpin, I've already talked about the Cable, and a few other ones sprinkled in there. There was a Nimrod re-release as well from that triple pack. They essentially just took the figure itself and then resold it in a deluxe format. In this particular case, we're talking about two new Marvel Legends that are actually being made available again. This is, I think, like the third or fourth time for some of these figures. If I'm not mistaken, like the Kingpin has been reissued like 5 to 6 times. I think the Cable, which is only like a year or two old, has already been reissued like 2 to 3 times. So it's kind of interesting. They will be reissuing their 20th anniversary Captain America, which I think was like a remixed version or an homage, really, of the original Toy Biz anniversary Captain America. This was kind of interesting because it did garner quite a bit of attention on the secondary market. If you guys were looking to pick this up with shipping and taxes and everything included, you were paying about, on the low end, $70 to about $75. So, and by the way, I think this was originally a deluxe figure, so it was being sold at about $35, if I'm not mistaken, or was it $30? Regardless, you can now pick this up. You can pre-order it for $39.99 from most retailers. You may be able to find it for $34.99. I personally haven't come across that price point, but $40 seems to be the new price point for deluxe action figures. This figure did come with 3 different pairs of hands, 2 separate head sculpts, a shield, a folded mask, 5 separate shield effect pieces, and then a backdrop, which can also be reversed. So there are 2 different ways of displaying the backdrop. It's a really neat release from Hasbro. It's something out of the box, something out of the ordinary, something that we're not used to seeing from Hasbro, and for that I definitely commended them when this initially got released. But as I mentioned previously in my other videos, I would like to see an updated version of this Captain America. But then again, if I'm not mistaken, this is only the second reissue of this particular figure, so I'm not super upset over it, aside from the fact there's like a $10 markup from the original deluxe price point. I'm actually kind of wondering whether they're going to reissue that anniversary Hulk, which has also garnered quite a bit of following on the secondary market. Maybe they try to double dip in on that. And it appears that Hasbro is just not going to allow any of these secondary sellers or any action figure flippers to make any money off of these collectibles, because they're going back anything that has even a small amount of resale value. They're deciding to go back and reissue it, which is pretty smart on their end. I'm not going to criticize them. It's a good way of being able to make more money, but as I said, there's some shady stuff going on. Why not upgrade the figure? Why not give us newer versions, the newest articulation scheme, pinless technology, all of that? I don't understand why they don't integrate that into a newer version instead of just reissuing the older one. But as I mentioned, this is only the second time that we've seen this particular figure. Secondly, they also made the Astonishing X-Men Wolverine available again, and this one kind of a similar trend as the Captain America. It was reselling for about $50 on eBay, so there was definitely some demand. There was a pretty decent market for it, so Hasbro decides to just turn around and reissue this particular figure. Now, again, both of these, or I should say not both of these, the X-Men I think is a newer body mold. I think it's a retooled version of a Wolverine that we've been seeing pretty consistently. It's not the new Gamerverse body mold that we just saw in that 2-pack, but it is definitely one of the newer updated Wolverine, so I'm not too upset about it. I said the same thing about Cable, and I've been saying the same thing about some of these reissues or re-releases, because they're still modern figures. They've only been released within like the last couple of years, and so the technology is still fresh in our minds. And so both of these I kind of like. I have nothing really against either one of these aside from Captain America. I don't know, at this point is what, like a 4 to 5 year old figure. I think that's kind of where I draw the line. If Hasbro's going back and re-releasing anything that's like 5 to 6 years old, why? At this point, just upgrade that particular version of the character and then make it available to the consumer. I know a lot of people were actually attacking me in one of my previous videos because I said something along the lines of, why are they reissuing this figure again? But people, I guess, kind of misunderstood what I was saying. I'm not saying that we don't want that particular character or that version. Like, I definitely would like the new collectors to be able to pick up a new Kingpin, but why not actually make him a new Kingpin rather than just reissue the same boring Kingpin we've been seeing like for the last 6 to 7 years over and over? So it was just an observation. I'm not saying that it's necessarily anything inherently bad. It's good for Hasbro. They continue to just reissue the same exact body mold. There's no like initial investment or anything too crazy, but at the same time, as collectors, as people have been collecting now for a few years, it's a little bit frustrating. You know, upgrade the characters, and that way you force our hand to be able to pick up newer versions of those same exact figures. Next up, I also did want to touch on a couple of different Kickstarter projects that actually just launched. The first one being the new Unparalleled Universe Kickstarter, and I have no experience with anything that Unparalleled Universe has ever released, but I have actually seen some reviews. People have, you know, given a ton of credit to him, not only as a content creator, but also as an action figure manufacturer. And again, I'm just going off of what people are saying. Most of his collectibles have that import quality, that import feel to them. The articulation is there. The soft goods are absolutely top notch. And so, as I said, I just wanted to kind of showcase a little bit of love. He will have his mascot Odious in a soldier uniform, and then you will have Odious as a cowboy. And as I mentioned previously, it comes with all the crazy articulation, all of the soft goods, and the figure actually looks phenomenal in the promotional images. The soldier will come with 6 different heads, 6 pairs of hands, a rifle, and then in terms of soft goods, it will come with a shirt, a jacket, and some pants. And there's going to be obviously some really fine sculpted detail on the pouches and the belt. Now, the Cowboy Odious will come with 4 heads, a cowboy hat, a shotgun, a revolver, 4 separate pairs of hands, a holster, ammo belts, a shin guard, and then he will also come with quite a few different options when it comes down to the soft goods. Both of these figures, as I mentioned, look absolutely brilliant. In my personal opinion, I really like the cowboy. I just love the aesthetics. I love the look. Now, if you decide to back the project, you have 2 options. Well, I guess technically you have 3 separate options. You can either buy the soldier for $95, the cowboy for $110, or you can receive both for $195. And actually, as I was scrolling through the particular Kickstarter listing, it did mention that there was another option, which is the all-in bundle where you will be getting the 2 new figures, the original Odious, and I guess a plushie Odious. I'm not sure if that's referring to like an actual plushie or if that's just the name of the character. As I mentioned, I really didn't pay attention to the original Kickstarter, but I'm assuming that's probably where you get the most amount of value, because apparently each one of these figures is going to retail about, you know, one something, about like 95 to about 110. I don't remember, or I don't recall what the original Odious figure went for, but I'm assuming all 3 of them would probably retail at close to about $300. So $250 probably seems like the better value here. Now, as I mentioned earlier, I have no experience with these collectibles. I have no idea if these figures are necessarily worth the price point, but just going off of the reviews from a lot of action figure collectors, I did go back just for the purpose of this video and look back at some of the reviews for some of the older Odious action figures, and most people either loved it or had just very good solid opinions on the action figure. So I'm kind of excited for this. I definitely have my eye on that Cowboy Odious action figure. No, it goes without saying, but I'm just going to point it out. It isn't for everybody. This figure isn't necessarily for the lower end collectors. As I mentioned, the soldier is going for about 95 plus shipping and taxes, and then the cowboy will go for about 110. So you're looking to pay for the soldier, I'd assume it's closer to like 120, and then for the cowboy it's about like 130ish. So just to be fully transparent about the price points, if you guys are interested, you guys can now go and support it on Kickstarter. There were also 2 figures that I guess have been teased for future releases. From my understanding, if this project gets fully funded, Unparalleled Universe is going to team up with Big Bad Toy Store to bring us the Inuit as well as the Ronin, which is really exciting. It's 2 new action figures. Now, from my understanding, we don't have any pictures of the accessories, of the extra head sculpts, of any of the weapons, and also the 2 stretch goals, or I guess I should say the 2 extra figures that will be made available later down the line. These are set to be released in January of 2027, or that's like the release window. So it's well over a year away. I'm going to assume that there are some delays that are happening behind the scenes that are just out of the control of the creator. On a side note, I think the closer we get to the end of the Kickstarter, or within the next few months, I think he will start to show off a lot of the extra head sculpts, the accessories, all of the extras that are going to come with all of the figures. I'm assuming right now, because it's in still early development, that it's going to take a while for us to get like a full picture, a full scope of what it is that's going to be included with these figures, but it's still really cool. It's neat, and I will say it's nice to see a content creator from the community be as successful as Unparalleled Universe. I mean, clearly he's now a big timer. He's one of the biggest content creators on the platform within the action figure community. He has his own action figure line, but simultaneously he's still a collector. He still enjoys action figures, and I think he's going to port as much love as he possibly can into these collectibles, and that's really nice to see. So there you guys have it. I'm not going to ramble. I'm not going to rant for too long. I'm just going to end it there. I will save the other Kickstarter that has launched for a separate video. I was going to include it in here, but it's just going to seem like a giant convoluted video, and I wanted to showcase love to the Unparalleled Universe Kickstarter as well as the new reissues from Hasbro. That's kind of what I wanted the spotlight on. We'll circle back around and cover those in a separate video. So thank you guys so much for tuning in. Make sure to enjoy the hobby, pose your action figures, play around with them. Stay safe out there, and make sure to tune in for this weekend. I do have a pretty big announcement. Hopefully I'm able to finish up the projects that I have leading up to the weekend. So stay tuned, and I will see you guys in the next one.